One thing I have noticed from the Super Bowl week this week in Radio Row is all these guys, these talking heads, former players, analysts, former quarterbacks specifically, talking about how much they love Drake Maye. On all these Boston shows, I've seen it with Marino and Kurt Warner, Dan Orlovsky, who I actually really like Dan Orlovsky, by the way. I know he gets a lot of shit. I like Dan Orlovsky. And they're all sitting up there talking about how great Drake Maye is. Raving about him, how he is obviously the face of the franchise, the future of the franchise. And we know that Drake has been down in New Orleans this week. He was down at the Pro Bowl last week, recruiting some players, telling them how great it is in New England. And certainly the Patriots need that. Okay, the Patriots need that. It's not a great free agent destination, no matter the cap space. And Drake Maye is going to be a huge selling point. It was for the coaching staff. They basically said as much. For Mike Vrabel, you think he really wanted to come to the Patriots if Bailey Zappi was the quarterback and you had to pick one at 4? Ooh, yeesh. This is such a bad draft class. Like, it wasn't even that attractive for the Raiders to hire a coach. Even with a top 5 pick, like, who are they going to even select a quarterback, But anyway, I hear all these guys raving and raving about Drake Maye, which I did all season long, but it's gotten to the point now where absence is going to make the heart grow fonder. And is it a case where now we are overhyping Drake Maye? Because he showed certainly tons of flashes in that rookie year, but finishes with, a respectable pedestrian, but respectable 2,200 yards, 15 touchdowns to 10 interceptions in 10 games? Is that right? 10 games sounds right. 13. Oof. What he appeared in 1 or 2 of them. So 12 games we'll give him. And those are good numbers, actually, for as bad as the Patriots were. And that's something we need to take into account here. There's a guy who's picked in the top 5, okay? The team sucks. They really suck. Very rarely do you get picked in the top 5 and do anything your rookie year. Like Jayden Daniels, that's an anomaly, okay? And you look at this just god-awful receiver room. Nobody can get open. And I think what it does need to be remembered about the 10 picks is very few of them were like really bad decisions. There's a couple where, the receiver doesn't turn their head, or, tip balls, or things like Kayshon Boutte gave a pick away in one of those games where he gets hit in the hands, tips it twice right into someone else's hands. Like, there is something of that to be taken into account, but there's going to need to be a big statistical jump in year 2. And that's not always a given. In fact, you look at the numbers here, and I'm thinking back to quarterbacks who, were picked very high, top 5, top 10. They had bad rosters, bad teams their first year, had some decent numbers the way Drake Maye did, and then the hype follows them. And sometimes it doesn't always pan out. Trevor Lawrence was one that came to mind, but one that I found very interesting, is another quarterback who was picked in the top 5 from a North Carolina college. They're actually both from Charlotte, North Carolina. They had bad rosters their first year. They came in replacing a veteran. They put up decent enough numbers on a bad team, and then we hyped them all up. But you better hope that Drake Maye is better than Daniel Jones. Because you look at this head-to-head from their first years, all right, both 3-9. Not much you can do there. The teams suck. They're so bad that not much you can do there. Drake Maye did have a better completion percentage. Remember, Daniel Jones is a little bit more of a runner, which is funny to think he was a little bit more raw than Drake Maye was, who was pretty raw going into this. But yet, Daniel Jones threw for more yards, threw for a hell of a lot more yards per game. Drake Maye only threw for 175. Daniel Jones threw for 232. Threw 9 more touchdown passes than Drake Maye. And only a couple more picks. 24 passing touchdowns to 12 picks. Drake Maye was 15-10. So that 2-to-1 touchdown to pick ratio, pretty good for Daniel Jones comparatively. Drake Maye has a better rating and does have more rush yards than Daniel Jones did, even though he's not quite as big, but pretty close. And only one of them made the Pro Bowl was Drake Maye as like a 5th alternate. So the passing numbers in their rookie years were better for Daniel Jones than they were for Drake Maye. That doesn't seem like it should be right? Right? And it shouldn't be. Like, I mean, Drake Maye should be better overall than Daniel Jones, what Daniel Jones has become. I mean, Daniel Jones is barely in the league right now. I mean, he was what, like a taxi squad guy for the Vikings the back half of this year. So it shouldn't be close. Like, Drake Maye should be a franchise quarterback, but all I'm telling you is that's what they thought about Daniel Jones as well. And they might have been right in thinking about that when you compare these numbers, man. But that's what they thought as well. And this is where it becomes very important that you make that correct hire at offensive coordinator. And because I tried to do the Drake Maye, Trevor Lawrence thing, by the way, but it is tough because Trevor played all 17 games, and honestly, Drake Maye had better numbers, which is funny. Yeah, he had more touchdowns, he had less picks, more rushing yards, but it is kind of, a lot of it's tough to compare because it's 17 games versus 13. But this is why this Josh McDaniels hire has to be so important, which is a hire that I did listen to the Dan Orlovsky one. I didn't listen too much to a lot of the others, just what they had to say about Drake Maye. But Dan Orlovsky talked about how he actually thinks that Josh McDaniels is archaic. He doesn't think there's enough pre-snap motion. It's just not the league in 2025. To which I say, man, I've said it before, Josh McDaniels is a student. Like, truly. He's changed his game so many times. Like, I wouldn't put it past him whatsoever to change more of the pre-snap motion and things like that. So I'm not worried about Drake Maye learning under Josh McDaniels the second year. If we look at Mac Jones, he was learning under Matt Patricia the second year. Which, by the way, Matt Patricia had a lot of fun with that with the Barstool guys down in New Orleans. He's like, Dave asked him, Portnoy asked him right away, like, hey, what happened to that time you were the offensive coordinator for the Patriots? What the hell was that? And he was just like, yeah, you kind of thought, what are we doing here? Patricia had no idea why he was doing that. Anyway, I don't think he's getting overhyped. I don't, because I truly believe in him. And I think what we saw from him in this year is more promising even than what we saw from Daniel Jones. And it does in his rookie year. And you do have to remember that the next year, Daniel Jones had him in the playoffs pretty soon thereafter. And he did win a playoff game 2 years ago with the Giants. So it wasn't that long ago. So it's not like he was a complete waste the whole time, but certainly busted pretty quickly thereafter. Drake Maye, I just think there is something different about him. And I do think you're hearing more from people around the players around the league and coaches around the league after they go up against them this year. You know, Sean McVay was raving about the kid. The best offensive mind in football is raving about Drake Maye after their game against the Rams. You know, so I do think it's different. I don't want to say this kid's going to be Daniel Jones, but maybe the public school in Charlotte will beat out the private school in Charlotte on that one. But it's just, I always get really not concerned, but, wary, so to speak, of the hype that quarterbacks get after the season. Because as good as I thought Drake Maye played, for the next 6 months, we're not going to see him play a football game. And everyone's going to watch the highlights. And they're going to remember the highlights. They're not going to remember necessarily how bad this team was, how bad his receiver room was, how rough it did look at times towards the beginning for Drake Maye after that first game. He had some clunkers in there. But for the most part, he came out of the game pretty confident. And you were confident when he had the ball in his hands at the end of the game. Going back to Tennessee, forcing that game into overtime, that incredible drive at the end, that incredible last second play. Like, this kid, there's a lot to be excited about, but I just hope that this isn't like what Nick Saban calls the rat poison. And he just hears about how great he is the whole offseason. I think the kid's got his head screwed on right, and he's going to have a quarterback the quarterback is going to have a head coach who's probably not going to let him know how great he is all the time. I think that's where Mike Vrabel comes into play and is a crucial play for Drake Maye in his second year. I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. I really can't. But I just don't want this to become, oh, Drake Maye is the second coming. He's as good as this guy and always going to be the next Mahomes. And he listens to that kind of all year long, off season long. I don't want that. But I do think he's pretty good. So to answer the question that I posed at the beginning, is Drake Maye getting overhyped at this point? No. But be wary of it. Just keep an eye on it. No, I think he is that good. But keep an eye on it.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.